So just to begin with a settling, letting the body soften. I like to use the image, or kind of, it's almost like a felt image of energy or stress draining from the body. So maybe a deep breath, and then a sense that all the agitation, stress, fear, sadness, anger are just draining down the limbs, down through the legs into the earth. That behind that comes a calming, a settling. This is really a very alert or awake kind of settling. So we're not settling into lethargy or dullness. We're releasing everything really that blocks us from having clarity, being truly present. So now we can feel the breath. Can see thoughts appearing and moving through the mind. You can feel our inner life, the emotions, mood. But nothing is capturing us. There is a sense of observing experience rather than being lost in it or struggling with it. This state of balance is called equanimity, undisturbed. And yet fully here. So to be here in this way, to be awakened in a balanced mind state, also takes a kind of effort. Oftentimes, meditation is almost characterized as the form, the effort that we are to make, as though paying attention to the breath were the whole purpose of practice. And that misses the finer point. Finer point of just being aware. Paying attention to the breath is just a tool for cultivating that mind state of clarity and calm. Nonetheless, the breath gives us a tool, one that's very specific to just try to be aware can be a somewhat vague instruction. So we want to balance an effort to use the form of attention to the breath with an understanding that that's not the end point, end goal. We use the breath as a way to open into a more spacious mind that isn't stuck on anything. So then there's this other component, which is the mindfulness of effort and mindfulness of the need for effort. So even as we're trying to be aware, we're also noticing how that trying is playing out. Is that creating more stress? Is it a striving? Or are we not trying enough and drifting into spaciness? This is where the practice becomes more subtle and complex, layered, requiring us to kind of keep track of several different things at once. This is the art of practice, is to learn to track the different elements of practice and then apply the appropriate effort or lack of effort, the appropriate letting go. When we first start to meditate, there's a tendency to look for the specific tools we should use, asking the question, how do I meditate? That's a useful thing to seek out. But over time, we see the limits of that strategy. The how really depends on us in each moment. We have to develop this broader understanding of practice and different strategies. And this is why experience is so important. We don't just learn to meditate. It's a constant exploration and investigation. Well, those might have been some of the more confusing meditation instructions I've given. I hope that wasn't uh, unhelpful for people. And it kind of goes along with what I'm wanting to talk about today. So that's probably what happened there. Again, good morning, welcome. And just kind of scrolling a little bit, see who's here. For those who've been following along, we're in step 6 of One Breath at a Time, and the section of the book called Feeling Feelings. And last time I talked about, I guess it was last Tuesday, because we had Spirit Rock on Friday, I talked about this encounter, a story of meeting someone who was kind of trying to work with loving kindness as a way of kind of getting rid of certain negative feelings. And so we're kind of getting into this really, to me, the heart of practice, and of really essential questions about meditation. And those were some of the things that I was um, kind of trying to point to in that guided meditation. The question of how much we can just apply a technique to bring about some specific result, and then then comes this question: well, what is the result we're trying to achieve? And that really opens up some of the uh, really fundamental questions about meditation practice. And I don't think there are necessarily easy answers with those things. Uh, so, um, so in this section, I mentioned Jack Kornfield's book, A Path with Heart, and what he talks about, what he calls insistent visitors. And he says, when any experience of body, heart, or mind keeps repeating in consciousness, it is the signal that this visitor is asking for a deeper and fuller attention. And so the reason this section is called Feeling Feelings in the book is that a deeper and fuller attention is feeling the experience. It's not thinking about the experience. It's not analyzing the experience. It's not even necessarily understanding it. So this is, again, what becomes challenging in terms of both teaching and certainly then applying. So I went back to A Path with Heart, and once I started looking at this chapter, and it's chapter 8 in A Path with Heart, it's called Difficult Problems and Insistent Visitors. As I said before, it just sort of, um, I remember reading this probably 1993. I think I got this book. It was published in 93. I might have got, well, anyway. And I remember reading it, and at that time, I'd been practicing for 12 years. I started, 13 years, but I started practicing with Jack in 1981. And a lot of what he described, it was like he was clarifying what he had tried to teach me on the 3-month retreat in 1981. And it felt like a lot of understanding of what had been a more intuitive process for me opened up as I read his description and as I read this chapter. So if you have this book, I recommend that you go and look at this chapter. And if you don't have it, I recommend that you get this book, A Path with Heart by Jack Kornfield. For me, it probably just landed at the right, maybe just landed at the right moment, but I still think it's one of the most helpful uh, and sort of broad studies of the meditative experience and the spiritual practice. It's the title doesn't even have, even the subtitle doesn't include Buddhism. The subtitle is A Guide Through the Perils and Promises of Spiritual Life. So at times he doesn't really sort of be claiming to give Buddhist teachings, but it's all underpinned by that. So I want to go to this particular piece of this. Again, there's a lot in here that I could get into, but I think this is the heart of it for me, which is a section called Expand the Field of Attention. So I'm going to read a little bit of this. There are a few basic principles for learning how to open our stuck places and release the contradictions of the body of fear, which is something he talks about in the previous section. But the first of these principles is called expanding the field of attention. A repeated difficulty will be predominantly felt in one of the four basic areas of mindfulness. So expanding the field of attention requires that we become aware of another dimension of the insistent visitor and not just notice its predominant face. Now let me read a couple more sentences, but this is, I think, what I want to focus on. This is because we are inevitably stuck on a different level from the obvious ones we have been noticing and naming. Releasing will only take place when we can shift from that which is obvious to one of the other levels of awareness. So basically, what he's talking about is how when you're meditating, you find yourself stuck in a cycle of thinking. And what you're taught is to notice the thoughts and let them go and come back to the breath, right? That's the technique, that's the form. But what happens with what these insistent visitors is that you do that, but it keeps cycling through. You go back to your breath and the thought comes back again. And you come, oh, there it is. Let me come back. And you realize that you're missing something, that the problem isn't the thought. And that no amount of like forcing yourself back to the breath or trying to hold on to the breath is going to create the concentration. Your mind's not going to get settled because you're not seeing the underlying cause. And this is something I talk about so much that many of you who have been on retreat with me are, I'm sure, very familiar with this. But maybe this helps you to see where I kind of was coming from and where I came to this understanding that we realize that because there are some things that are like just repetitive thoughts. For instance, when music plays in the mind a lot, it's usually just because you listen to that music and it's kind of very direct. It's just, okay, there's that song and then there's coming back and there's a song and coming back and eventually you can break that habit. There could be just something that you're planning, like the vacation or something. And your mind keeps going to that. And maybe there's no big emotion behind it. It's just that you've been thinking about it a lot, so your mind goes there. But this is something else. This is when there's an underlying emotional state. There is a hook from something. And when you start thinking about it, the thought is really just the manifestation of the underlying state. It's not the thing itself. It's just a sign of the thing. And that's why paying attention to the thought isn't that helpful, because you're not paying attention to the thing. You're paying attention to the sign of the thing. So that's why you have to, as he says, expand the field of attention, go beyond the thought and the breath and realize, oh, there's something else, and discover that. And this is more subtle, right? It's the emotions are much more subtle than thoughts and breath and body. You know, they don't have the same markers. They don't sort of have the same boundaries. uh, that they're not just sort of so easy to categorize. And this is the tricky part about meditation. But when we are able to open to them, it's, and I think this is very much kind of tied with trauma too, that what happens is that we are able to integrate the feeling into our awareness and accept it. Because when it's not seen, when it's hiding behind the thoughts, it's not, there's an inner conflict with it. Is really what the thoughts are a lot of times. And I don't want to say this all the time, but a lot of times this, what I'm describing here is that the thoughts are actually the effort of the mind to control and ultimately suppress the feeling. And so the thoughts are actually the manifestation of aversion or a fear or resistance to the feeling. And so that we're in this state of conflict that's not even seen, it's not even recognized. So when we are able to see it, feel it, then it comes into consciousness, and then it can be held like any other experience. Painful experiences can be held when we learn to be mindful, when we cultivate that emotional resilience to, okay, I can be with grief, I can be with loss, I can be with anger. Those things can be there if I'm just mindful of them. But when we're not mindful of them, then they're creating this underlying disturbance that keeps diverting us. And we can see how tied into addiction this is, to get back to the the underlying purpose of this course. If it is it a course? No, I don't know what it is. Our addiction is another manifestation of this inner conflict, this conflict with who we are, with conflict with our feelings, the lack of our ability to integrate our painful feelings and to allow them into our consciousness. We can't deal with them where there's too much aversion. That's, I mean, I would say addiction is like the extreme case of this. It's not just thinking about, it's not just having a mental state of conflict, but it becomes that mental state then manifests into our lives, which of course those mental conflicts always manifest in our lives. They manifest as, conflicts in our relationship, as in our work, besides the inner self-hatred, the depression, anxiety, they manifest outwardly, of course. But the addiction is such a classic case of this, because addiction is this physical effort to do the same thing that our minds are trying to do, this physical effort to control and suppress the feeling, to transform the feeling into something manageable or desirable. So this process is, very much tied in with recovery. And I guess we could, it occurs to me as I'm saying this that maybe if we look at the steps, and here we are at step 6, that steps 4 and 5 are kind of the step version of this kind of effort to integrate or to to shed light on the underlying conflicts that have been unaddressed and have been uh, not integrated, not understood in our lives. And so there is a certain logic to that, perhaps, and with the steps, is that that in steps 4 and 5, there's this looking, really effort to look very closely at what's there. And then step 6 is when we begin the process of letting go. We're entirely ready to let go. Looking at where I want to go here. Let's see. So, yeah, this is the place where Jack has this idea of the top 10 tunes. He says, on retreats, we call these insistent visitors or difficult repetitive thought patterns the top 10 tunes. He says, normally when thinking arises, we can simply name it thinking. And in the light of awareness, it will vanish like a cloud. However, the top 10 tunes, whether as words, images, or stories, will persist and return no matter how often they are noticed. They play like records, repeating a theme over and over. And then he talks about like naming, giving them like numbers on the top 10 list. But it's sort of silly in a way, and then naming them, the different types of, which, I mean, I think this is, here we have the sort of the inventory part of it. He says, we can use a variation. He says, we can give them a humorous name or title. I have given names to many now familiar aspects of myself, such as the hungry survivor, Mr. Achiever, Attila the Hun, Baby Jackie, Fear of the Dark, the Impatient Lover. In this way, the repeated patterns of fear, sorrow, impatience, or loneliness become more familiar, and I listen to their stories in a friendlier and open-hearted way. Hello, nice to see you again. What do you have to tell me today? Which is kind of like the Buddha saying, I see you, Mara, or the one that people like, which is inviting Mara to tea, right? But then he says, however, this is not enough. And then he goes deeper into this, which is, so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of levels to this. And I need to kind of maybe look a little bit more as how I want to proceed with this. Again, comes back to, as I was talking about during the meditation, effort. What is right effort? How do we meditate? I mentioned that I've been listening to 10% Happier lately, because I'm going to be interviewed on there, and I kind of want to get a feel for how Dan Harris approaches his interviews. And if you've ever listened to that podcast, you might notice that he is really particularly fascinated with meditation techniques. And after a while, I find it sort of funny because I think it's a really limited way to think about meditation. And it comes back again to that effort we have to control. This is like what's so tricky about this practice. And, of course, it's an addiction issue too. That why do we come to meditation? Well, underlying impulse, I want to feel the way I want to feel. Same reason we come to addiction. I want to feel the way I want to feel. And I read the advertising. I saw what it said in the, if you learn to do this, you will be able to, and then it's, manage your emotions better and feel more calm, be more concentrated, have more focus, et cetera, et cetera. So now we've got this situation where it's like, I want something and somebody's offering it to me. If I do this, here, come and take this thing and then I'll get it. Right. So great. Now I, sign up for the class and I pay my money and it's like, then they tell me how to do it. It's like, okay, great. Now I can meditate, and then like maybe a few days later, 5 minutes later, it's like, wait, it's not working, you know, or maybe it works for a while, it works for a while. It's like, oh, I got it. I went on a retreat and now I figured it out. But then it stops, at some point, something happens, and so it's like, oh, wait, there's another course to learn this kind of meditation. Now I need to do more loving kindness meditation. It's not mindfulness isn't enough. I need to do, okay, now a loving kindness. Okay, now that's really okay. Now I feel good. That's great. Now I feel the way I want to feel. Got the technique. You know, and then like, you get cut off on the highway and you're screaming at the person. You're like, wait a minute, what happened? I thought I was loving now. I'm not angry anymore. Why am I having this fight with my kids? Like, uh, and it's because there isn't a technique for controlling your mind, to make yourself feel the way you want to feel. And so then it's like, oh, I'll give up. Let's go have a drink. If I can't control it, if I can't get what I want, screw it. I might as well just like enjoy myself in the meantime. Ay, ay, ay. But wait, that didn't work. That really doesn't work. So then realize that the letting go is letting go of control, letting go of trying to make it be anything. And yet not stopping making an effort to do the next right thing, as we say. And, this is like grown-up spirituality, right? This is adult spirituality. This is mature spirituality where it's like, I have to do my damnedest. And I have to accept that it's not going to be what I want it to be all the time. How am I going to live with that? I mean, this is a daily challenge, for me it is. Right now, death doesn't seem like a bad idea. Like, oh, if I were dead, I wouldn't have to deal with any of this crap. You know, um, it's, and then it's like, oh, wait, maybe I should just take a walk, uh, maybe a cup of tea would be a good idea. Maybe I should stop reading this thread on Twitter and, watch the new sitcom. Uh, just find something that doesn't drive me mad. And I actually, I'll tell you, something that I decided to do. I'm meditating more. Uh, just I'm trying to meditate more. Sometimes time interferes, but I, I was listening to Dan Harris, and he said he meditates 2 hours a day, and I was like, wait a minute, I used to meditate 2 hours a day, but I haven't been doing that. So, and I haven't started meditating 2 hours a day, but I did meditate 2 hours on one day, a couple days ago. and I'm committing to meditating more, and which is, not going to fix anything, but creates some potential for sure. And yet sometimes, sometimes it's too much calm. And in these energetic states, like one of the risks of meditation is, if you're in a depressive state, meditation actually isn't that great, like extended periods of meditation, because it just it gets you duller. If you don't have like the clarity and concentration, you start to, sink more into a dark place. So no easy answers. So this is, you know, my usual optimistic, this will fix everything instruction for you guys. No, I just think it's really important um, to be real about this practice and about what we're doing. This is certainly one of the hardest times in our living memory for our world and certainly for our country. And we can't separate that from our meditation and our recovery. It's all tied in. And yet, boy, this practice and this recovery thing are just, they're incredibly powerful. It's as much as they don't fix everything. When I look at the madness of the world and I realize I'm not there. I'm not there. Myrna can testify to the fact that I can get angry. She saw me yell at somebody last week. But if we can stay out of delusion and have an intention, we're not always going to be able to fulfill it. This is, and to me, step 3 and right intention are like just so much the keys to these things, because I get thrown off, just moment by moment, and I'm able to come back moment by moment. When I got angry last week and yelled at somebody, and they dropped off the Zoom call, I immediately wrote an email. No, I was still on Zoom, and I went and wrote an email of apology. That, to me, that's it for me. It's not like, oh, I'm not going to be an asshole. It's not that I'm going to never feel depressed. But it's that I'm going to respond. I've got to respond. I've got to keep coming back. I don't know why I haven't written a book yet called Keep Coming Back, but that's the next title. If I can bear to write another book on recovery, it would be called Keep Coming Back. Because that, to me, is the essence of it all. And it's the January 1 in my new book is to keep coming back. January 2 is keep coming back to the breath. So, that to me is what's the heart of it all. We just have to keep coming back and keep trying to do what we can do and use techniques that we can use and let go of techniques when they don't work, and, just keep coming back. All right. So we have a few minutes left. If anybody wants to jump in and say anything. Oh, well, hi, Carol and Nola.
Hi.
Hi.
Was going to ask you if you could recommend a Jack Cornfield book, but now that you've gone into, Path, what is it? Path of the Heart.
A Path with Heart.
The
Yes.
Path with Heart. Okay, I'm definitely going to get that one. But
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying about when we're meditating and our thoughts stray to certain repetitive patterns. I like to call them mini dramas.
Yeah.
I can't claim that I coined that. That's from James Redfield in the Celestine Prophecy from years ago. We have these mini dramas we keep,
Okay.
replaying. So anyway, I am equating that to every so often I have this urge that I need to get my hair cut. And really, I don't need a haircut. There's something else in my life that I need to change, but that thought is manifesting itself in me getting a haircut.
Yeah.
So I've learned not to run out and get an awful haircut, but to go back and see, like, am I feeling angry? Am I feeling lonely? Is there some other emotion attached with wanting that? And so that kind of makes sense that I need to focus on what are these recurring straying thoughts that I'm having when I'm meditating, because there's something deep underlying them.
Yeah.
And maybe they're just manifesting themselves in wanting ice cream or wanting my old boyfriend back or something like that. There's some other need that I need to fill, and essentially the answer to everything for me is going back to spirituality.
Yeah.
So that really made a lot of sense. And I'm so glad I joined today. Thank you so much.
All right, Carol. That's really nice. Great to see somebody from New Orleans. Anne, you had your hand up. You gotta unmute, demute. You're still muted.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's okay. Yes.
After 10 months.
Yeah, I know.
The little screen that you mentioned earlier and our wanting to, was that in the meditation? I don't know. But my urge to want to, the way you said it, the way you want to like narrow down all the chaos that's going on and just focus. And so what happened for me, my insight after Friday night, listening to the Spirit Rock, I had the activation that you were talking about. Like I got activated. I was literally insanely, addictively scrolling, doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling, yes.
And when I first heard that term months ago, I was like, that's just stupid, crazy. And then I realized, I won't get into the long story, but it was funny how I called so I said it out loud. I admitted I was powerless. I was completely, insanely going back and forth, hitting headlines, going down the rabbit hole, to the detriment of other things in my life. Seriously, it was a problem.
Yeah.
So on Saturday, I just committed to my heart, it's almost as if it feels like, it almost feels like a broken heart in a way. It's like the physical feeling I have in my chest, and it like radiates to the back, and so it's really unreal. And I haven't felt this to this extent in my life. I'm more aware of my body now, right? So
right.
And feelings and how they affect me. So I do my Qigong practice and I cleanse and clear and I replace with, kind of marinate in positive. And I haven't been able to meditate as much, but when I do sit, I'm trying to find a balance between movement, mindful movement, and sitting right now. Because sitting almost, my energy level is just kind of off the charts. And so I needed to say that out loud because the news, ingesting, it's intoxicating, ingesting that, those words, those images, and it feels like an addiction. It feels Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I have that thing of like judging other people. I don't know, just of like, oh, these crazy people that are just watching Fox News all the
Yeah.
time. And then I realized, oh, wait, I'm getting crazy just watching whatever I'm watching and reading, following the people on Twitter that I follow. And exactly, it was like, oh, I don't want to admit it. I don't want to admit that um, I'm just like this mirror image of it because, because like I said, I mean, I'm not going to accept the idea that, Black Lives Matter is the same as QAnon. I mean, just screw you, but, but my mental state and the way I'm engaging it is the same. It is because it's just as you described, it's an addictive pattern, and it becomes so embedded in the mind that it's really not helpful. And so it's actually been helpful. Like yesterday, I played golf with a friend of my older brother, and this is a guy who voted for Trump, and he belongs to one of Trump's golf courses. And, he's a friend of my brother's. I'm going to be friendly with him. We're playing golf. And so I get to like hear him, and he's like completely opposed to Trump right now, he says. In fact, he actually sued Trump for Leona Helmsley when he was, anyway, it's weird stories, right? But no, nonetheless, he threw out the equivalency thing that the Black Lives Matter protests because they attacked police departments, and and it's just really good for me to be able to talk to somebody like that without losing it, without screaming at them, and to reckon, like, I have to reckon with the fact that there's a lot of people who think like this. And if I just write them off as insane and maniacs, like, there's a lot of people who have these beliefs who are not going to attack the Capitol. Like there's degrees here. Like, let me be rational about this. And if I'm going to like live in America, America, I'm going to have to, figure out how to not to hate 50% of the people,
Yes. Yes. That's the challenge.
Yeah. And so, and going down that rabbit hole, that kind of Twitter rabbit hole or whatever, feeds that negativity to where there's no tolerance. And I'm not saying I'm going to buy the equivalency, but I want to like have tolerance for people who are thinking like that, and at least be able to play golf with them, not bang them over the head with a 3-iron,
Yikes. Yeah, no, that. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And you mentioned getting angry at someone. And for me, the kind of the high point was when my husband's on the phone with an old friend from Israel, and I'm yelling at my husband to tell him what's really going on. This is like the height, and I'm just like, whoa, okay. Yelling. So.
Right.
So I feel a lot better for the news fast, and I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to give it up.
No.
But I want to stay sober and healthy, and can't go back now.
Well, I know. And I always have to remind myself that I'm going to be dead and the news is going to continue on without me. Like, what do I think I'm accomplishing? I'm not changing the news, Well, as Wes would say, if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own. So, but that turns out that could be a problem as well. Well, I'm going to keep going here. If people need to leave, I see some people have ducked off, and I'm sure some people are. I don't have any plans today, so I'm going to take the next two people have their hands up. Aaron, hi. You're still muted.
Hello.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hi, no problem.
Technical difficulties. I just wanted to say, like, I had to write something down. You said, if we can stay out of delusion and have an intention. And, you know, I've been in recovery for over 12 years, and I've tried it all. Like, I've done, AA hardcore and like SLAA hardcore. And I spent an hour in a UA meeting before this call. So,
what is that?
There's
what's UA?
Under Earners Anonymous.
Oh, Under, yeah, sure. I can relate.
And our number one, the number one symptom of under earners is timekeeping. Keeping, like, how do we spend our time? And it really, like, that's a tough one for me, because I don't want to, like, give up anything. I don't want to, like, but then I'm like, but what am I doing just sitting around watching TV all day? I don't have a job right now. I don't, like, there's all kinds of things. Well, what I've spent time doing for the last 12 years and probably most of my life is trying to figure myself out. And it's a really, I think I love today, because I love the idea that, like, I came to meditation and to 12 steps and to therapy and, just about anything that you can think of to, like, fix myself so that I could be better, so that I could fit into something, or so that, like, I don't know how to express it eloquently, but I just realized, like, in recent days, literally days, that I don't want to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't want to keep trying to figure this out, fix this thing. Yeah. I just want to be happy and, like, be nice to people and be open to possibilities that I like what you said. It's about, like, it's that you said it was like being diligent every day on something, but also realizing that it might not be exactly what you thought it was going to be or what you wanted.
Yeah.
And, that's just kind of, it's hard to sit here in that kind of muddy water feeling of, like, well, I don't really want to do anything right now. I don't really, like, I know I'm supposed to be doing this, I'm supposed to be doing that, and I can do this little thing and this little thing, but sometimes I just don't want to do anything at all. And then when I sit and meditate, those little thoughts come up, those little, like, like you said, it's like, is it a thought, like, oh, let it go, and then, or is it like something that's deeper than that? And, like, trying to really sit and be aware of when I'm so self-aware, like, that I trick myself into not realizing that the depth in which I need to take that awareness, like, where I need to get to actually realize how to feel that, how to understand what it is. Because I'm just like, oh, I know what it is. Cool. I'm, moving on.
Yeah, there's a difference between self-consciousness and self-awareness too, I also say, like, the feeling like I don't want to do anything is usually a symptom of depression, and that needs to be, you got to work against that. My experience, because I'm a depressive, and if I think I don't feel like doing anything, that's a big clue that I need to do something. And it doesn't have to be anything special. It could just involve doing the dishes, but it's like, I need to do something, because when that energy just gets stuck like that, I just go down. That's a dangerous place. It's not about controlling the state. It's about not letting it's about the energetic aspect of it, that gets out of control, takes over.
And that's a problem for me, because when I am doing stuff, I'm just doing it like,
right.
Like, and it's just this like, and then when I stop doing stuff, it's like, it's the inertia law, right? Everything.
Yeah. So that's where mindfulness, trying to bring more mindfulness in to like, what is to really feeling that the energy that's behind the action, so that it's like, I want to do this thing, but I notice that I want to do this action or this activity, but I notice that the energy underneath it is this grasping, or fearful or whatever energy. Now, can I let go of that energy and still do the action? So that means you have to learn how to apply mindfulness to the underlying states, to the impulses in real time. And that takes intention, it takes practice, but it's not, some unmanageable thing to accomplish, but it's something to investigate. Like, oh, can I start to like separate out the action from the anxiety behind the action?
Thank you.
Yeah. Chris?
Hey, Gavin, thanks so much for the session today.
Yeah.
I'm based in Los Angeles right now, but I used to live in San Francisco and spent a lot of time at Spirit Rock.
Nice.
So my question, actually, you partially answered it just now, but it's in relation to these visitors that we don't want to come the top 10 playlist that keeps playing. And I have a sense of what that playlist is, and like my taste in music, the top 10 changes as time goes on, right. Constantly. But once I do start to identify those, I'm wondering, what I do, since, whenever sort of these thoughts come into my head, my sort of intention is to sort of recognize them and sort of bring my awareness back to my anchor point. And as Cornfield mentioned in the reading, with a lot of the thoughts, you can just say thinking, right. And they'll pass. But with other ones, they won't. And so, right. Is the suggestion that at a certain point, instead of bringing your awareness back to the breath, you actually change that focus and start to do the investigation?
Yes. So yes, it is. And there's a few things that can happen in there. First of all, once you see it's there and you're familiar with it, it's acceptance. That's like the primary thing, because the problem generally is the rejection of it. It's like, it's not enough to just see it's there, because there's still this, very often, if it's an underlying thing, there's still this underlying rejection of it, this underlying judgment of it or conflict with it in some way. And so we have, it's the recognizing, and this is kind of the rain. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like Tara Brach loves it. So it's like, okay, I see it, but now I have to turn towards myself and see what is the felt experience of it. And the felt experience is usually some kind of tension or rejection. And so that's where I go, oh, well, that's okay. Like, this just sucks that this is just like who I am, or this is just what's arriving right now. I'm familiar with it. I don't have to reject it. I might not like it, but I don't have to reject it. It's just like, okay. And so we work on that. Acceptance obviously a big 12-step idea. But there's we really have to work at that process of acceptance, because there is a mental element to it that's kind of saying, oh, like, it's not my fault that I have these negative states. It's not my, that's a sort of acceptance on that level. This is how things are. It doesn't do me any good to fight it. All that kind of mental acceptance. And then there's the felt acceptance, is oh, can I bring like a softness to this? Or what does it mean to bring loving kindness to this? Or whatever triggers that emotional letting go, that you can bring to that. So once that's happened, then you've changed your relationship to it, right? Which is one of the things we talk about with practice, right? We're not trying to change our thoughts. We're trying to change our relationship to our thoughts. Same with feelings. We're not trying to change our feelings. We're trying to change our relationship to our feelings so that we're not in conflict with our feelings. So the recognition and then the acceptance allows us to, okay. And then the thing is that this is a persistent cycle, right? That thought comes up again, the feeling is there again. I have to go through the process again of accepting. It's not like, oh, I did it once, now I accept that. It's like, oh, this is deeply embedded in my consciousness, in my psychology. And so I have to kind of like, this becomes part of my, for me, it's like, oh, this is my mindfulness practice. This is the central aspect of my mindfulness practice, noticing when the crap comes up and accepting it, letting it go, and then, oh, there it is again. Oh, what do I do now? And sometimes, as I was saying, sometimes it means I need to get up and do something physical. I need to do something with my body, because it's not just a mental or a mindfulness exercise. Like, sometimes the mind state is because I haven't been moving my body enough, or because I've been focusing my mind, as Anne was talking about, on really negative things. I need to focus on something else, and I think that the pandemic makes this all the more difficult, because there are so few opportunities to break. So many of us in such limited behavioral cycles or life cycles. It's like, there's upstairs in my house, there's upstairs and there's downstairs, there's going outside or staying inside, and then I could go to the store, but because sometimes, like, shopping is like, oh, that's a good way. Like, yeah, but if I go to the store, like, I might get COVID, and it's like, wow, like, it's very limited. So there aren't sort of the natural breaks for us. You go to, going to work, go to the office, wow, your mood changes, when the office is just the same place where you are. So, yeah.
And would you recommend that this investigation is done just for these most pernicious thoughts that come in, or should we be doing this for every visitor that comes up? I almost feel like if I tried to do it for every sensation, every feeling, I might sort of get distracted from the sort of original intentions.
Yeah. So if you're on a retreat, you do really try to apply this in this moment by moment, like really noticing the subtleties. In our daily lives, most of us aren't going to be able to do that. And as you suggest, it kind of would become like an OCD kind of behavior where it's like, wait, I'm supposed to be actually functioning here. And instead I'm stopping every 2 seconds to examine myself. So yeah, generally it's like, catch those things. Boom. Whoa, what's going on? What? Yeah. So good question.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, Chris, thanks. Thank you, everybody, those people who hung out. This will be the extra long recording. Obviously, I think this was really important. And obviously, some of you guys either have nothing else to do with your day, or you also think it's important. So nice to be with people, and stay safe. you know, I think we're going to be okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, everyone.